Hello, good morning, students. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So welcome back again to your classes, contact classes. Just a small recall. In the block one, we have finished block one. So today we will be dealing with the block two. So a small recap. What we have learned back. That is in the block one, we learned about the communication, right? In that we have discussed about the concept and nature of communication. Then we also discussed about the need of communication and also discussed about the barriers of communication. So the block one was purely talking about the communication and its related allied areas. So now moving on to the block two, we have communication and society. In this, we will be talking about the interpersonal media and we will also discuss about the communication skills. And at the same time, we will talk about the communication and society. Yeah. So let us begin. Yeah. So as we have understood that what is communication, that communication is something where it is a process of conveying, messages, and also we have some purposeful act where we are trying to give the message that is composed and transmitted, and at the same time we have to ensure that it is being understood. So the potential of communication, if we are talking in general, is what we have understood, but let us understand that communication is very important in terms of management. So here we will be talking about the different dimensions of communication at a workplace or a management tool or an organization. So any work ambience will basically depend upon the kind of effective relationship that we maintain at the organizational level. So to understand that, let us understand that communication at organization level has different dimensions such as intrapersonal, interpersonal, group communication, and mass communication, and definitely they have different impacts. So apart from that, we also see that oral communication is strategy to be adopted. So we have also discussed that in group communication we have various formats like meeting and conferences. So in a crux, what is that we understand that when we are talking about the different dimensions or different types of communication, and including the oral communication, we see that all these are part of having an effective relationship, either talking to one as a two-way communication flow, or upward communication, downward communication, diagonal communication, horizontal communication. So all these are very important when we talk in terms of organization. So let us understand what is intrapersonal and interpersonal communication. Yeah. So as we understand that communication is a complete thing of a person who wants to create understanding in mind of another. So let us be more of practical and logical. So communication is just not talking but trying to create an understanding in mind of another. Yeah. So we are trying to explain the communication in terms of a professional manner is that we communicate or to create an understanding in mind of another, and it is a bridge of meaning and involves a systematic and continuous process of telling, listening, and understanding, right? So as we understand that communication is very integral because we are a society and we are form of connected society. So we feel that man is a social animal, definitely, and we need the communication. So just so what are the different ways that your person communicate is, as we said, intrapersonal, interpersonal, group communication. So intrapersonal communication happens when a person receives the stimuli. So suppose here what they have stated an example is that you are in a garden and see a blossoming rose. You feel very happy and you want to express your joy to others at the beautiful sight. So if no one is around to share your experience, you will feel the happiness alone. Yeah. So it means to say the external stimuli which you got is internalized, and this is a process. and thus it can be said as an intrapersonal communication. To simplify it, let us understand that intrapersonal communication is something where the entire process of thinking within your brain is being communicated. Like you just it is intra, that is within oneself. So we are trying to communicate within oneself, wherein you are seeing, observing, or reacting, thinking, or whatever. So the best example could be, like you are praying. So when you are trying to pray, what is that you are praying to yourself? When you are dreaming, you know so you it is only you who is communicating with your brain. So that is the intrapersonal communication that talks about oneself communication. Talking to our own self is called intrapersonal communication. But you don't speak out. If you speak out then you will be termed to be insane person, right? So it is something where communication is talking to oneself in the brain. Yeah. So there, then the next one is interpersonal communication. So interpersonal communication is very important for a society to sustain. Yeah. So here intrapersonal is also very important. We'll talk about it later on. But interpersonal communication is very effective way of communicating, and also a very important dimension that we need in the society, because we tend to misunderstand. We tend to uh, assume something, presume something, but everywhere assumptions and presumptions don't work. So interpersonal communication is where A is talking to B, and at the same time B is talking to A. So when A is trying to communicate, that means the A is trying to inform something to B. So B has to get back to A with the information what he was intending to give. So B will also communicate. So that means interpersonal communication is that it is one-to-one communication, and it is something where it is trying to get a feedback also. So if we talk in terms of the feedback, now a friend talking to another friend is also an interpersonal communication. But when we are trying to talk about one-to-one communication in an organization, what is that end the result is that we get a feedback. Yeah, we get a feedback. For example, any organization wants to achieve something or has some work to be done, so the PR department or HR department might communicate. So at the same time, whether the persons have received the information or not, whether the persons have understood or not, is immediately there is a scope for them to get a feedback. So that way we see that interpersonal communication has an immediate feedback which will help to strengthen the relationship and also make an effective communication and a successful communication. Going further, we also see that we have a value of interpersonal theory. So there are several theories studied by academicians. The age-old theory of Aristotle, rhetoric theory, mentions about three elements in communication strategy. That is the speaker, the speech, and the audience. Yeah. If we are aware of this Aristotle theory, it is basically a rhetoric theory where Aristotle theory is basically used in political communication. So in that one we see that he says that there are ethos, pathos, and logos. So in this part of the communication you have a speech and the audience. So anyhow we have to we also see that in the modern days there are four theories of communication which basically are popular. One is social scientist theory, normative theory, working theory, and common sense theory. So, what is social scientist theory? It discusses about the nature, working, and effects of communication derived from systematic and objective observation. Yeah. So it is something related to understand that what is the effect of communication, where we have a approach with some objective. Yeah. For example, let us say that a welfare scheme or something by the government. So there is some objective. So we will discuss about the nature, the working, and the effects of the communication, and we try to understand that what is the observation. Then if there is also a concept of a normative theory. So normative theory is concerned about the social values to be absorbed. Actually, what we understand, normative theories are four press theories. The press works with has four theories, that is authoritarian theory, libertarian theory, then you have social responsibility theory, and Soviet media theory. These are the four media theories that makes us understand that how the media has to work, has been working, and will continue to work, and what are the ways that it has a conceptual frame to work in the society. So it helps in shaping media institutions and expectations of social agencies. Then the working theory is based on daily performances of media practitioners. Yeah. So we try to understand that, the rules and regulations, the wages, the issues, the challenges, the difficulties, the advantages and disadvantages. The working theory talks about that one. The common sense theory refers to the knowledge and ideas which everyone acquires by virtue of experience. So it is something self-explanatory, the common sense theory, where it is talking about the experience of one. Yeah. So then we see that these. So what are we? Why are we talking about this one? Because when we are saying communication, these are the ways that we try to work within the frame of the theory and understand that how communication in different areas we see that the communication is playing an important role. Peter F. Drucker explained the crucial role of communication, including interpersonal communication in management, in the following way. So, when we are referring to the management, Peter F. Drucker explained that the manager has a specific tool. Yeah, that means that the manager, he is a person not only to say the rules and regulations, but also very important that he has some kind of information to be passed on. Yeah, he does not handle people. So unfortunately, the managers handle people but not think of the information. But exactly by Peter F. Tucker explains that it is the information that has to be managed by the manager, but not the handle the people. So as part of that one, he has to motivate, guide, organize people to do their own work. His tool is only to do all this in a spoken or written word or the language or the numbers. So how is the manager trying to communicate with the organization? As we just discussed that, in an organizational communication, the employee, employers, employees, they have to be well connected and have an effective relationship. So the manager plays a very important role, as he has to see that he's disseminating, motivating, guiding, organizing people to do their own work. So the manager's job is engineering, accounting, or selling. His effectiveness depends on his ability to listen and ability to speak and to write. He needs skills in thinking across to the other people. Yeah. So ultimately, it is his interpersonal and intrapersonal with written communication and the ability to speak and ability to read and write will make him a successful manager. So when we are talking about relationship, what exactly is the relationship? So there's a saying that I will pay more for the ability to deal with the people than other ability on the earth. This is said by Rockefeller, famous US industrialist. So interpersonal communication should develop the intimate relationship for the betterment and of the functioning of the organizations. So researchers have linked, loneliness with a variety of negative characteristics such as self-esteem, depression, illness, and a high rate of suicide. Recently, when you see the interpersonal communication research, has shown that the relationship between loneliness and impaired social skills was also to be understood. Then we have the rapid diffusion of communication technologies like all this technological development pages, and now we don't see they are like no more, but we have mobile phones, computers, and we see that now we have social media, and we have technological advancements, social media networks and all those things. they have to be better utilized for personal communication by the organizations. That is why we see that, any organization will definitely have some kind of a social account. So, thus, we understand the prime objective of communication are in order of importance, effectiveness, and economy. Effectiveness is essential, and letters and all those things are very economical. So, when we are talking about organizational communication, we have to take into consideration the importance, the effectiveness, and also the economical way of reaching to the people. Now, let us understand the role and impact of oral communication in employees and community relation. So what is oral communication? What we are talking orally, what we say. So the oral communication is the best way of communication. It gives an advantage of informing the receiver the message depending upon the level of the receiver. So in our daily routine, what we do is that, we only do the oral communication. We try to reciprocate, or we try to pass on the information, because you already know that, what is the level of understanding of the receiver. So in that manner, we see that, the oral communication is the common and the best way of communication. For example, if you see the chairman and managing director addressing the employees on the achievement and problem faced by the organization, will definitely give an impression of a personal touch. So when we are having an oral communication, it is something where we are trying to create a personal touch by discussing the issues, the achievements, the success. So when you are an employee, you will see that, you are having a satisfaction to work, and you understand the nitty-gritties of your organization. Now, when we see this one, you're sending a written communication in such case may not yield good result. Because talking can, it's an easy one-to-one communication, so it will help us to resolve and understand and build the build the kind of um, yeah. So it will help you to build the relationship. So the power of oral communication is very important, is very significant. But we have to also see that, direct communication is the best communication to solve the sensitive issues that we see in our daily lives or in the organizational communication. So communication is always a two-way process. It involves the receiver and sender, and unless the natural ability of a good manager influences the employees, we can't see that, there is a professional ambience in the organization. So hence we say it is not only the speaking and ability. When we say a manager, it is not only the speaking and writing ability, but also he should be very good at oral communication. Then only he would be able to influence and bring a change, and also lead the team for a betterment of the organization. Then we have community relations. Yeah. Now here, what exactly you mean by community relations? This is very important. When any organization is there, we need to have a community relationship. So here, community doesn't mean about XYZ community, but it is basically very important related to the publics that are related with the organization. So you have in an organization internal publics and external public. So when we have a good relation with your internal public, that is the employees, then only you will have a better growth and work ambience and professionalism. But what about the external? So who are these external publics? So internal publics are the employees, and the external publics are the people who are the investors, who are the dealers, who are the partners, who are, and anybody on the board. So there is a necessity and need for the organization to maintain communal maintain a harmony between the external public, because it is something where they are the people who will be investors who will be part of that particular organization as an investors, or or the dealers or something. So here we see that community relation is an important aspect when dealing with the publics. To maintain cordial relations in the community, one should really strive hard. But we see, unfortunately, these days we don't have. The community can be a group of employees or persons staying at a particular area with a common goal. All the public sector undertakings have recently included community service in their agenda for the financial year. So now community, relations is not only just a saying, but it has become the agenda of public sector companies. Otherwise, also in the private sector, also we see, what is this, a CSR? CSR is something, corporate social responsibility, or community relations. We are also part of it. So the oral tradition is very effective and strong. That is why Ramayana is narrated in 100 ways by the folklore artist. Then we have, it is the best medium when we say communication, in urban areas and all those things. Okay, we are able to communicate, we are able to understand, but when we are talking about the communication in the rural areas, then the oral tradition is very important there, because we can communicate with each other and understand the other side, requirements and necessities. So what are the examples of oral communication? Like Burakata, Kavi, Sammelans, and Mushairas are part of this one. Will have an intimate and touches. So that is why, people like poetries, kavitas, Mushairas. Then the other element is the feedback. Now, feedback is very important. If you and recall the process of communication, what it was, you have a sender, you have a receiver, you have a sender, you have a message, then you have a channel, and you have a receiver. And at the same time, when A is a sender and B is a receiver, so we see there is a feedback going on. So that feedback is also very important. So when we are doing a oral communication in a way, we are trying to talk as an one-to-one communication. So here where we will be easy to see that, get the feedback is very important, because it requires, so in some issues, when we are saying that, now for example, we had this COVID. So we see that, most of the people couldn't have, or didn't want to have the vaccination or that one. So when the what do we say, those are ASHA workers and all those people will have an oral communication. So they will, what they try to do is that they'll get a feedback that, oh, their mindsets are not ready to bring a change in the mindset. The feedback is very important, because it requires empathy to understand the emotional feelings. So similarly, in an organization, if they want to be successful, it has to get an immediate response and the feedback from their publics. That could be an internal public and external public. So you might also ask that public, there is no public's word, but in communication, in organization communication, in PR, we have internal publics and external publics. So the head of the organization shall gauge the feelings of the employees and understand what exactly is required. So feedback is essential for modification of communication appeal. So ultimately, why are we trying to take the feedback? We are trying to take a feedback to modify what best we can do for the organization or for the public. The message shall be on the psychological needs, aspiration, and acceptance possibility. So ultimately, we see that the communication should be something where we are having the psychological needs, aspirations, and acceptance of the community. So a permanent feedback mechanism is to be installed at various levels to gauge the situation. So anytime, anywhere, we have to see that, that there should be a proper feedback mechanism to be laid, if you want to see that, you are having an effective communication. And the feedback is the best way to sort out any kind of the challenges or the issues. Then we have group communication. So when we are saying group communication, when we refer to Professor P.L. Vishweshwar Rao's book, Principles of Communication, he has classified 4 kinds of group communication. I've classified the group communication into 4. One is primary, second is reference, third is casual, and fourth is temporary. So the primary consists of relatively small number of people. They interact on personal levels directly. Like they have face-to-face and strong emotional feelings are associated. It can be family, friend circle. Yeah. A reference group need not be a member of that group, but he wants to be identified with that group. So corporate senior manager wear a similar color dress to identify themselves as official of that group. Similarly, groups Ramakrishna, ISKCON, and all those things, there are the part of the reference group. Then we also have this one important point here. Yeah. When we are saying a reference group, when we are saying, for example, depending on unexpected demand, when we are talking about the casual group at a particular place, for example, here what they have quoted is, in a bus accident, the passenger joins a group to tackle the problems and exchange the views on the some kind of a movement. After the travel, no one meets the others, and there is no bondage. Yeah, to attend to a particular task, a temporary group is formed either by the organization or the society. For example, the university appoints a committee to look into the grievances of its, whatever the problem is. It is headed by chairperson. So the casual groups are something where we see that there are committees who look into the matter and try to sort it out. All such groups have their formal or informal rules and regulations. For example, if you are a member of PRSI, that is Public Relations Society of India, it has a guidelines to each chapter. So once you are a member, you are governed by the chapter rules. It includes eligibility to become a member, annual subscription, rights and duties of the member. So you are part of the group with which you are attached, and you have to follow the certain groups. So depending upon the behavior, depending upon the behavior, we see that the and dedication of the organization, one can see that how the society, that particular PRSI society is working with the people. So in a group, he works with a team spirit. So when we are talking about the coming back to the group communication, you know what are the issues we see in the group communication? Why group communication has a certain advantages, but at the same time, what is more challenging is, in group communication, it is all the concept of leadership matters a lot. So effective communicators gain advantage by lobbying for them. They become chairman, secretary, etc., and decision makers. While communicating the decisions, it requires skills to convince the group. Suppose a function in connection with the foundation day is to be observed. The leader shall convince the group in getting the financial sanctions and the arrangements to be planned. So leadership styles can be different, and in communication also sometimes it might fail. So some have the advantage of oral communication in a better way, and they will get on well. They never enter into arguments and pull on well with the members. So this is a skill, tactful skill that is required. So generally in a group which has a divergent views are expressed, and we always see there is a pro and anti and pro kind of groups we have. So while communicating the decisions, the decision maker has to emphasize on the main issue and get the approval. A successful communication at one place may not be successful in another. So there is no hard and fast rule that, because he was a very good communicator there, so we can also expect him to be a solution provider in all the situations. So we also have informal groups. So in what are informal groups? So informal groups are where we see that employees attempt to fill the needs which are largely personal in nature. Recognition of this relationship is important to management because they influence both the motivation of the individuals and effectiveness of formal organizations. Employees tend to bond together in small informal groups drawn by common interests and harmonious personal traits. Such groups commonly take coffee breaks and lunch together. So these are the informal groups. So to easily identify the people who go to the coffee breaks, have lunch, and engage in personal contacts, so they are part of the informal groups. Now, This is what we have noticed about the group communication, but we have interpersonal media also. Media is classified into several categories as interpersonal media, like folk arts media, mass media, and new media. The interpersonal media is described in a manner where the interpersonal communication is being used. So these are the effective ways of reaching the person-to-person communication and and which are being used in terms of group communication also. So what are the interpersonal communication? So interpersonal communication, interpersonal media includes meetings, AGMs, that is annual general meetings, and telephones and conferences. So, what do you mean by meeting? Meeting as an important medium of interpersonal communications. What are meetings are called for? Because to discuss a common goal. So, thus we see that yeah, meetings are very important as part of the interpersonal and a group organizational communication. So when we say meeting, meeting is just not, there are different types. One is board meeting, yeah, and so we see that there are different types of meetings. So board meeting, so they take place as per the bylaws of the organization, yeah. Then the agenda is circulated to the members are and who are free to express the view. It can be shareholders, it could be executive members or the directors. The chairman puts the meeting in order to discuss the agenda. So now with the permission of the chair, then the agenda is listed or discussed or whatever it is, a consensus is being taken. So the chairman controls the meeting and finishes the agenda. But it is necessary to call for the board meeting to resolve any major decision in the company. So when we say meeting, when we are talking especially about the board meeting, it is very important. Yeah. The public sector undertakings have a board which directs the organization with the common goal. Are they these people? They have the members who are nominated there. The interpersonal communication here might change. So the person who has a good say in the company will take the lead and lobby for the issue, and the representatives of the government will have their own. So when we are talking about this interpersonal communication, it is not only in the private sector, but also we see that in organizational communication, all these different dimensions of communication are very important. Then the other one is annual general body meeting. Yeah. What does Reliance do generally in the February, March or something, in June when they come up with all those, they generally have an AGM. Yeah. So it is customary to have AGM with the shareholders of a company or organization because the bonus and dividends are declared and the customary audited report is presented to the members. Speech by the chairman or managing director is arranged. So annual general meetings are very important, but then it is all limited to their shareholders of the company. Then we have public meetings also. So public meetings are like, for example, to celebrate the anniversaries, the meetings are arranged on a foundation day. Like we have, it is the best way to communicate to the larger group of members about the organizational achievements or failures during the financial year. So we see that the head of the institution gives an overall picture of the organization and also try to talk about the achievements, the success, about the team, about the people. So here we see that that indirectly or indirectly it is trying to create an good example and becomes uses these public meetings to build a relationship and honor if anybody is has really done work, which really gives an encouragement for the members to work in the organization. Yeah. Then, for example, like International Day and National Day weeks are observed in organizations to celebrate the occasion. So, when we see this Independence Day, Republic Day, National Fire Days, and all those things, these are all part of the public meetings. So, we discuss what are the issues. Like, for example, if it is a fire safety week, the director of fire services would definitely organize for a public meeting where he'll try to create an awareness, talk about the employees, and motivate the people. Yeah. The other way is telephone. So now that we don't, instead of telephone, let us take the example of the mobile phones and all those things. So a company communication within a company, oral communication other than face-to-face contact is accomplished purely through the phone. So before the existence of this mobile phone, it was the phone that we used to get the calls and we used to talk to them, and we used to find out what it. They used to share the organization shares the activities through the telephone. So generally, we used to have what in an organization we used to have the extension numbers and all those things. So we use that is one kind of being communicated and being in connection with the people. Then mobile phones, as you know, that these are the 21st century technological advancements, and which are very quick to interact and very more effectively. So conference calls are being arranged. So mobile phone being just one person communication. Now we see that these mobile phones have come helped in conference calling also. That is one to many. Then we have conferences as another source of communication, and annual conferences. Yeah, so we have seminars, international conferences, and all those things. They are being held to communicate the decisions or extract information from the employees. Then these annual conferences and international conferences, national conferences are also part of the communication. Then, or let us understand the oral communication as distinct from mass communication. So, how oral communication is different from a mass communication? So, basically, what is mass communication? Mass communication is basically talking to a large group of people, yeah, with the help of mass media. So, and we have seen that it has been a successful and effective communication tool in the 21st century. The most profound change in international communication because of the technological advancements. So we see that there's so much of mass communication with the help of technology, and now with the help of the advent of this internet and all those things, we are able to communicate. So mass communication, especially the media, do not operate in a vacuum but interact with other groups, individuals and institutions in a process. So mass communication is an effective instrument of power with potential capacity to influence, attract and direct public attention. They can shape the public opinion. They can influence the behavior, and also they can confer legitimacy and status, and inform and entertain. So, if you recall, we have also talked about the mass communication and their characteristics. So, this is also part of it. So, here, relative appeal of communication. As part of the oral communication, we see that there is more impact on the audience and it generates personal touch. It in the mass media where we see that is in the mass communication, we don't have a personal touch. The messages senders are at a distant place and they cannot gauge the pulse of the audiences. The feedback they receive is not direct. This is all about the mass communication. So here, the appeal they generate is from the hearts and it reaches the hearts of the masses in terms of oral communication. Appreciation by the way of whistles and claps encourage the artist. Yeah, the receiver, the reaction of the viewers provide feedback to the message. Government publicity is also done through such oral communication. Like publicity cells and all those things. They have drama divisions as part of the information and broadcasting ministry, and you have directorate of field publicity that engages the artist, so that all this oral communication helps the people to get associated and have a personal touch with the government, and create an relative appeal. So thus we understand what is the oral communication. Now let us understand communication skills. Yeah. So as part of that, we will be discussing about the concepts of writing, reading, speaking, and listening, and also explain the process of reading, and examine the importance of public speaking, and describe the factors affecting the efficient listening, and analyze the non-verbal communication. So when we were talking about oral communication, that means it is a verbal communication. Now we will be looking at the non-verbal communication. So any analysis of communication is definitely having certain difficulties, because it is a complex, basically it is something where there's a complex process. So, however, we see that, as part of the communication, we also see that we are using the reading and writing with non-verbal means of communication. So, as we understand that communication is a sharing of ideas. So, while if you are reading a book or something, also you are trying to know some information. So, what it is something, one kind of a non-verbal communication. Yeah. So apart from communication skills, communication abilities come into playing to an increasing extent with the advance of technology. For example, voicemail, email, teleconference. Moreover, as teamwork becomes more and more critical in the workplace, communication skills will assume even greater importance. So, according to the Stevens, they have predicted that the ability to communicate effectively, both orally and in writing, will become even more valuable as technology intensifies. Yeah. So, we see that the communication not only with the oral, but this oral communication with the help of a written communication can create wonders in the process. Yeah. So there are certain skills oriented professions where we require the communication skills. Yeah. Where are those? So we see that our effectiveness centers upon our actions and growing expertise at performing our day to day work or our duties. Okay. So as we continue to progress, it is likely that success will depend more and more upon our interpersonal skills and ability to develop effective working relationship. Yeah. So jobs that include a managerial, supervisory, or a mentoring role can involve complex relationship with the people. There we see that demands can be made that there are sometimes conflicting and ambiguous. So in this in such sensitive things, effective communication may be understood as an occurring when the intended meaning of the sender and perceived meaning of the receiver are the same. So when how do we say the effective communication? When the sender is passing on the information to the receiver should be in a position to understand and reciprocate. Then only that is a complete and successful and effective communication. Goldman concluded that a high level of individual success at work was characterized by emotional intelligence or skills of social awareness and communication. These includes the ability to motivate and influence others, to give honest feeding sensitively, to empathize and develop relationship, to monitor one's own behavior, to handle emotions both of self and others. So there is a concept of emotional intelligence that talks about the social awareness and the communication, which is all plays a key role in having an effective relationship. So here we see that to give here after understanding and motivating the workers, we have to see that you will get an honest feedback, and also see that the organizational politics and they have to be handled very carefully. So here how the manager can play a very important role is which is writing, reading and speaking and listening skills are very important in all areas of life, and especially in such organizational aspect. The ability to communicate through reading, writing, speaking and listening is what makes humans unique. Yeah, that is what we are different from other living bodies. So these means of communication allow us to learn from the experiences of others through the message they impart. There is more than ample evidence to suggest that although the four aspects of communicative ability are highly related, they are nonetheless logical and empirical distinctive. How they are logical? The four skills are related in complementary ways. Both listening and reading are receptive skills, mode of understanding, whereas speaking and writing are productive skills. So, thus the four skills are related to each other by virtue as a mode of communication, and in the direction of communication also they are very important. So, let us understand what exactly you mean by writing. So, when we say writing, skill performances look skilled performances look easy and effortless. In reality, as every dancer, musician, they are all the product of hard work, hours of practice, attention to the detail. So, Writers themselves agree that writing in is like communicating in another language with its own set of rules and requirements. We have to see that there is an enormous way where the writer should be very powerful. Writing is a very powerful skill and it is very important. Yeah, it shouldn't be ambiguous, it should be straight. So writing involves using proper spelling, handwriting, design features, and it should be created for a specific purpose. So writing is the final product of several separate acts that are hugely challenging. So among these separable acts, we see that writing is basically very important as for example, if we take the Constitution of India, it was written, it has to be written because it will be referred, so it should be written in such a way that it has been understood and it should be clear by the rules and regulations. So the writing skill is very important. The writing could be on a subjective, it could be with the objective, and also it could be on a lighter vein or it could be on a softer vein. So it should always see that ultimately the message should be conveyed to the reader. Then reading skills. Francis Bacon said reading makes a complete man. So what he said years ago is still relevant. Reading is an important communicative process, and skills are probably the most important language skills. Yeah, language skills required for academic and professional. Reading is concerned with four factors, that is decoding, comprehending, then you have text analysis and response. Yeah. M. Ashraf Rizvi points out that the basic purpose of reading is to extract information from the various sources. Yeah. So it is when we say that reading is just not reading any kind of a thing, but reading is something where it is trying to decode, comprehend, and analyze the text and also understand the response. Then we have speaking and listening. So Yuan states speaking is a productive oral skill, and it consists of producing systematic verbal utterances to convey meaning. Speaking is the way in which we express or exchange thoughts and feelings through using language. At the same time, Hammer notes that the communicative point of view, speaking has many different aspects, including two major categories. That is, it has accuracy involving the correct use of vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, praised through controlled and guided. So when we are speaking and listening, we have to also see what are the words being used, how we are trying to communicate, how we are trying to connect with the people. But if used accurately with the correct vocabulary, definitely it will have a great impact on the listeners. Yeah. So we see that language knowledge and skill in using these are considered two fundamental elements. So when we are speaking and listening, language plays a very important. Yeah. Suppose if you have gone down south in Tamil Nadu or something, and if you are not aware of that language, now we with the technological advances, that is a different thing. But if you are not able to understand, then you will be at a confused state, or you will be in a fix that how do you head in that one. So for speaking and listening, language is very important. Yeah. Then let us understand what you mean by written communication. So written communication is sharing and exchanging of written symbols between individuals or group. It is the presentation of ideas in a coherent manner in written form. Written communication basically takes place various forms like letter, faxes, email, and reports, memos, and advertisement. So in an organizational communication, written communication is very important because the kind of number of employees we have, it could be a small, big, large organization. So depending upon that one, we see that this written communication plays a very important role in organizational communication. So the various forms of organizational communications are letter, faxes, email, reports, and memos and advertisements. So advertisement is also one kind of communication. So Through this, we can acquire good writing skills through extensive reading and taking a note, and while we can take a note of it, and also we can understand that one. Yeah. So that is about that one. Reading. For reading, we have to understand that, reading is just not reading. People love to read the books, novels, authors, or, student prepares, reads for their exams as part of the syllabus and all those things. So there are certain different ways of reading, but then we need a special reading skill. So what are those? Reading is highly interactive process that takes place between reader and a text. So that means reading skills are something intrapersonal communication. Yeah. So this is something intrapersonal communication. So reading is highly interactive process that takes between a reader and a text. Individual readers will bring variable levels of skills and experiences to this interaction. Storytelling and all those things. So while you do all those things, the storytelling and all those things, what is that? You have novels, you have short stories. Basically, what they do, they try to motivate. They come with some moral. End of the story, we have some kind of a moral message. So here we see that, the language skills, cognitive resources, and knowledge of the words, everything is combined in the text to give the world knowledge. So any act of reading occurs within a particular social, cultural, and emotional context. Yeah. So we have to make a note that, reading occurs with a particular social, cultural, and emotional context. These consist the elements such as the child's home culture, the previous experiences of reading and being read, and their expectations. Yeah. So here, readers use a variety of reading strategies and to make it more comprehensive. So it includes skimming, scanning, yeah, active reading, yeah. See, the acronym SQ3R stands for the 5 sequential techniques you should use to read a book. What are those? So while you are reading a book, or you want to become a good, reader, then you follow this SQ3R, that is survey, question, read, recite, and review. The technique of basically this film critics, book reviews, people, all those they will follow all those things because they will be writing about the book reviews and critics about the new books and all those things. For them, it is important. So reading process is one one part of our literacy. Like literacy rather is one part of the reading issue. So the reading process is a complex and multidimensional. Reading is a complex process that builds an oral language facility and encompasses both specific skill development. So here when we are saying that oral languages, it is something phonological awareness, phonics and all those things. So you have to be well aware of the languages, the pronunciations, skills, everything. So speaking, the importance of public speaking. So see now, what is speaking? If you don't speak, then there is no communication. So we see that, there is always a need for a person to speak. But then if a student is been called to come and speak on the stage, they have a fear. So here we see that, according to the most studies, people number one fear is public speaking. So number two is death. This means to the average person, it is better off that you it is general for in general that, public speaking is not per se everybody's cup of tea. So there we need to have a special skills. So why public speaking is important? In everyday we see that, public speaking refers to the communication practice of a speaker sharing, like motivational speakers, politicians, teachers, and all those things. They are part of not teachers, but this motivational speakers and politicians, and social outlets and all those things. They are part of the public speaking. Why it is important for them? Because it is important as the term we have to see that we are trying to deliver an important information. We are trying to talk about the close meeting. We are trying to talk about the board of trustees, address the issues and all those things. So it is very important. So the fundamental notion talking about the public speaking is a form of a communication. It is embodied with an oral act. So here we see that the public are also the public speaking also have a certain challenges, but then what we require is that your body, your voice and visual should be so impressive and have an impact on the listeners. Then understanding the audience is very important while we are trying to pass on the message. A child cannot be talked about you know technological advancements, and at the same time the senior person cannot can be explained about the child and issues. But then you have to understand that when we are making a communication, we are in the process of a communication, understanding the audience is very important. And ultimately we have to communicate effectively, because the dynamic communication process basically depends upon the speaker and the way he will have a personal touch in communicating. And at the same time we need to have a presentation skills. These are very important in these days, because with the kind of a competition we see that so presentation will help us to easily understand the concept and also retain. Because of the retention what we have, it will help you also to understand what exactly your objectives are there. So but then we see that you have to practice your speech before you give the presentation, set the tone, then consider the language and style, and also incorporate visual aids that will be more pleasant. Yeah, then your gestures and eye contact are very important. Then listening, when we talk about the listening skills, effective communication is basically on the effective listening. Generally in the class, when teacher is speaking, the student doesn't listen, so they are not able to understand. So therefore it is very important that you have a listening skills also appropriate. Then we have this non-verbal communication skills. Yeah, so what do you mean by non-verbal communication is something where we are using facial gestures, body gestures, your facial symbols and all those things are part of the non-verbal communication. So how do we understand the culture and non-verbal communication? So we see that communications comes from the non-verbal cues, which we tend to focus on what we say. So it proves to be significant in conveying the messages, in forming judgments about others. Often a person says one thing but communicates something totally different through vocal intonation and body language. So now, for example, this non-verbal communication, we have you have sign languages and all those things. So what it is there, we will understand. But there is a possibility in oral communication, interpersonal communication, that I tend to say something and you tend to understand something. So that is all about the communication skills. Then we have communication and society. So when we are saying communication, definitely we understand there is a role of a communication in a society. Yeah, yeah. The communication is for basically for transfer of ideas, for interaction with the society. It is helpful in the education. It is to update oneself and also as part of the entertainment. And at the same time, we also use the communication. The purpose of the communication is to understand the world. Yeah. So let us understand the impact of society on communication process. So when we say impact of society on communication process, countries need any country, any developing country or developed country needs a healthy, vibrant civil society. So therefore, we see that the communication process should be a well-defined communication process. Then only you will have a healthy, vibrant civil society that can lead for the development. When we are coming to the organizational context, we see that the communication has certain challenges, and for any organization, until and unless we don't have a proper communication or a mechanism, then it is very difficult for the organization also to sustain. So depending upon the area, depending upon the organization, the strategies of communication can be employed. Now when we are saying so much of communication and social change. Do you believe that the communication plays a very important role in a social change? Yes. See, overcoming the social reforms during colonial period. So mass media was used for the overcoming of those all those challenges. Raja Ram Mohan Rai, who is also called the father of Indian journalism, he got all these new papers, and he tried to create about the sati practices, abolishment of sati practices, and all those things. So we see that communication was done for a social change and upliftment of the societies, the betterment of the societies, women empowerment, human rights. All these are part of the social change, and it is only through the communication that we are aware and we try to understand and we follow the system. And we also see that communication unites people, and communication and culture is very important. When we say culture, it refers to the complex collection of knowledge, folklore, and language, rules, rituals, habits, lifestyle, and attitude. Yeah, Western culture, Indian culture, South Indian culture, North Indian culture. So what is the relationship between the communication and the culture? It is something a very unique, complex, and intimate one. So first one, cultures are created through communication. That is, communication is the means of human interaction through which we see there is a cultural characteristics. So what are the characteristics of culture? Culture are complex and multifaceted. Cultures are subjective. Yeah, cultures change over time, and we see that cultures are largely invisible. So for example, we see that what, as I told you, what is the culture we are talking about now. We see that what is the culture on internet language. There are jargons. So the normal moving away from a normal culture, normal way of a system is and adapting to the new form is also one part of the culture. So what there are certain concepts of information and knowledge society. What do you mean by the knowledge society? The term information society has been proposed to refer to the post-industrial society in which information plays a very important role. So information, with the growing technology and all those things, we see that there is a information being needed by the public, and also the organizations need to pass the information for their continued sustainability of survival. So the information society is a term used to describe a society and an economy that makes the people the best possible use of new information and communication technologies. In the information society, people will get the full benefits of all the technologies. So for example, ICTs are used like for ATMs, and also other services, banking services, mobile services. So information society is something where it is connected with the technology. Now we are in the age of information because of the technological advancements. Then we have this cultural concept of an information society. So it is closely related to the information environment in which we live. The environment has been more penetrative, more intimate, and more constituent of our body, of our everyday lives. There are several dimensions to this development. First, there has been an extraordinary increase in the information in social circulation, mainly because of the technological advancements. Second, social interactions have become more complex and verbal, and written communications have been inadequate. So as a result, what we see that, the symbolic import of like the way we dress, the way we talk, and all those things are part of our because of the information society, we are getting connected with a lot of people through the social media. There is also an impact on the culture because of the information society. So thus we come to the end of the block 2. Then in the next week we will be dealing with the third block. I hope you all understand. If you have any queries or questions, please let me know. So I'll end the session here.